usually we've got a lot of material to use. But what I'm emphasizing here is that although there were 3 units at all times in Bob McKimson Presbyterian and the last 20-some years, the other guys had left, the result was that we were involved with each other in product. Now, at Hanna-Barbera, when Tex Avery went over there from Warner Brothers, Hanna-Barbera, who won several Oscars and had absolute control of the studio, decided that the best thing to do was to demean Tex in order to protect themselves. And so poor Tex was not the kind of person that fought back. He tried to make funny pictures, but he didn't make Tom and Jerry's, and so Tom and Jerry. And it was a cruel thing. In many studios, even at Disney's, there was a good deal of rivalry. And we were rivals only in the sense that we were making different pictures. And each one of the units, all the units used them. They did Bugs Bunnies and Daffy Ducks and Elmer Fuds and Porgy Pigs. But I did all the Roadrunner and Coyotes and all the Pepe Le Pews and all the Barbara Marshalls and the Singing Frog and things like that. But Tex did, Ted did, pardon me, I got mixed up. Chris did the Tweety and Sylvester's. I used Sylvester too, but I used Sylvester as a horizontal cat, and he used it as a horizontal bird. My cats couldn't talk. But he did the Yosemite Sam, the Tweety and Sylvester, and Bob McKimson did the Big Rooster and Tasmanian Devil. And they were done only in those units, so we each had certain little goodies that were our own. But the main thing was that we were involved in such pictures, so there was no question about the idea of being a war woman. And so that's the way it went. It was a very healthy thing. And I commend this thing. I mean, probably best not to have it for more than 10 people in jam session. But as I say, it's quite remarkable. People who spend their life saying no are also kind of people that seem required to say something. So we found people that never heard the word yes supplying ideas that they wouldn't have otherwise because they couldn't just sit there. I mean, they were protecting their jobs and they had to demonstrate that. Occasionally, we usually had the production manager in there too, so they were afraid of him. And they thought if he noticed he wasn't contributing anything, they might have trouble, you know. But that was one of the reasons. Now, the other reason about the characters was that this is best exemplified by a little boy who was introduced to me a few years ago by his father as a man, he said, that draws Bugs Bunny. And his little boy is about this big, you know, and he looked up at me and he put, he was mad. He said he does not draw Bugs Bunny, he draws pictures of Bugs Bunny. And he was absolutely right, because all the years I was trying to figure out what is it, the characters are alive. We never thought of them as drawings. And I'm sure at your best you don't think of these things as clay. It's a matter of character on the screen. So Bugs Bunny is very real to me. Daffy Duck is very real. As I said, I dream of being Bugs Bunny, and when I wake up, I'm Daffy. So these characters, I think that's the reason. Because we always thought of as putting things. When I was a little boy and I first read Tom Sawyer, somebody had told me that Mark Twain or anybody else wrote Tom Sawyer, I would have been just as furious. He recorded Tom Sawyer. He did not write him. He did not originate Tom Sawyer. Tom Sawyer was alive and he was recording his duties as a boy. So I think that's why the characters have lasted. Another thing that helped us inadvertently was that we always avoided using temporal gags, anything having to do with the present time. Because from the time we started the film until it would appear in the theater, it took a year from the time we started when we finished it, and the answer prints had to go out, it had to be distributed, and then it would be pretty much up to the exhibitor or the distributor as to when it would appear on the screen. We never knew. And they never went out with particular pictures. Of course, you know they were all made within. We released theatrically. None of our stuff was made on television. Since we didn't know when it was going to appear on the screen, what we avoided using any topical gags. And so today, most of our films are, the gags are, I would say, immortal, but they're gags that relate generally to human behavior, just like Tom Sawyer. However, there were one or two little slips, and the picture of Fridge Phoenix called High Diving Hair was a very, very funny picture where Yosemite Sam was trying to force Bugs to jump off of a high diving board into a bucket of water. Bugs being what he was, he always lured Sam to go to the end of the diving board and falling. He kept falling and chasing out to the top. So, very funny picture. The reason he wanted Bugs to do that was because a man named Fearless Freak, who was supposed to do it, had not shown up. So by God, we're going to do it. And so in this case, he comes roaring up the stairs, up the ladder, and he gets to the top and runs out, and there's a doorway. And he starts pounding on it. He says, open the door, open the door! And then he turns to the audience and says, you notice I didn't say Richard. Well, there was a song called Open the Door, Richard, in 1954. So there aren't too many 7-year-olds that were alive in 1954. So he couldn't resist it, but it's so strange. Who's Richard? So I guess that would be the answer. Does that satisfy you? He must have something to say. What kind of shoes did I wear? One thing I will tell you though, that all the animators, the Disneys and whatever, because all the time that we were making those films, everybody wore suits, vests, everything, ties, hats. During that time, that's what you did. You may notice that you look at newsreels or you have a whole gang on for New Year's Eve on Times Square. Everybody's hats on. Everybody wore hats, and but some guys even worked with their coats on. But some of them more daring, took their coats off and even loosened their collar. Which is considered kind of But these nuts, they were nutty people. But that would. So you see, it isn't how you dress that makes you what you are. It's how you act that makes you what you are. None of our characters are funny looking. You never saw Bugs Bunny or Daffy in a movie. It's not a comic strip. All the comic strip artist has to work with is dialogue and the funniness of his character, the distinction, the style. The animator is a person who must know his basic skill, which I believe is drawing the human figure. Then you can draw anything. But you can't have a style. Now, I know that when I make a picture, there's certain things that people say it looks like your kind of picture, but it's more in the timing and maybe facial expressions and so on. But I can't recognize it, and I hope I never do. I believe that people, if they ever recognize their style as successful, they will then try to imitate it. It becomes a helix, a downward helix into the black hole. Because the more you imitate yourself, the worse it gets. And that was proved in some of the Disney films, when they started trying to imitate themselves. And they wondered, what would Walt think? Well, not would Walt think, what will Walt think? This is after he's dead.
But he's frozen, right?
The director would come in and say, yeah, I think it's kind of funny, but what will Walt think? Well, Walt's been in the grave, or he's iced out in Phoenix, or wherever. But he's there. One time they made a live action picture with Maurice Chevalier playing a priest, and had several priests in it. And so across was the hospital across the street there, where Walt finally died, and so they invited some of the nuns and the priests to come over and look at this picture to see if it would offend the Catholics, So they came over, and this young nun afterward, they said, how do you like it? Does it give anybody? She said, one of the young nurses said, well, no, she said, I think the man upstairs will adore it. Well, the director said, well, Walt's already seen it. Disney's the man upstairs was Walt. So what?